All right. Welcome, 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 ladies, to Still That Girl. That's you. That's me. Still that girl. We're talking raging and changing hormones. And again, that's happening to us all throughout this adult journey, whether we're becoming mothers, becoming grandmothers, and anywhere in between. And I have two experts here with me tonight. I was starting off with a conversation about or an introduction of Jenna Perkins, who is our nurse practitioner and women's sex health expert. So I met Jenna at a mom conference and she was a vendor and Jenna had sex toys on the table. So I was like, oh, let me go see Jenna. Jenna, what you got over here, girl? And so we started talking, and I'm like, oh, what's this one do? And yeah, and I'm telling her all my business and knew this lady like 30 seconds, but yes, had an opportunity to talk to Jenna for just a few minutes. Then she also vended at Power Plays last October, and we had another great conversation and had a conversation about like let's connect and like bring the conversation you and I keep having to the community about what's happening, what's changing, what'll work, why don't I feel like it ever? Why do I just like want to go to sleep? Like all the things. Let's talk about all the things. I just don't have any energy, all of those things. And Jenna has been such a great resource and, just great to talk to and communicate with about this. And so we said, let's have a fireside. And then I said, wait a minute. I got to bring my girl Shalita in the mix. So Shalita, y'all, is an herbalist. Like for real, like Shalita invited me out to her house. Her whole, I don't know, her forest
Oh,
is plentiful with herbs and bunnies and things.
ain't no bunnies over there.
I didn't see bunnies, but I'm sure there were some out there. I camped in the backyard at Shalita's house, y'all, in a tent
You
on.
did. I'm so proud of her. Oh my God.
I'm not an outdoorsy girl, but I did that in Shalita's um herb conservatorium. So Shalita is truly an herbalist. She's the owner of the Ancestors Apothecary downtown in downtown Baltimore. And so go visit her. She's in Canton.
Mhm.
And I wanted to bring Shalita into the conversation because Shalita is, a natural girly who, like, so Jenna will tell you the things, she'll talk to you about the hormones and all the things, and Shalita will say, and also, you can do this. So I wanted to have a balanced conversation where we were able to explore both sides of, or both approaches. I am in the middle girly. I'm a, go see my acupuncturist and who's also an herbalist and get both, and then also go see the traditional doctor and have found the balanced approach to really, really work well in my life through different illnesses, through surgeries, all the things. And so I'm really excited to have this conversation with both of you. You're both so like fun and easy to talk to. So yeah, let's kick it off. Jenna's gonna kick us off. Jenna is going to tell us what in the world is going on in our bodies as we are raging and aging. All right, Jenna, you're up.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. And I'm just gonna power through a bunch of slides. I do this talk a lot. So I'm a women's health and gender related nurse practitioner. I own a practice in Old Town Alexandria, but I am licensed in Maryland, so see plenty of folks in the Baltimore area. Thank you again for inviting me and continuing to just welcome me into the community and the space that you created. It's been an honor to get to know so many young Black female entrepreneurs because it can feel lonely. And so I'm just, again, honored to be able to share what I've learned with my community. So Discover Health came from a lot of years of me knowing how to treat women and knowing specifically what Black women need and deserve, but not really having the ability and the flexibility to give them that. So I was in a traditional downtown DC practice doing urogynecology, so bladder health, for almost a decade before I had my second baby. And I just found myself burnt out. I'm doing 15-minute visits. Women are talking to me about their most intimate taboo concerns. I'm peeing my pants. I hate having sex because it hurts now. I have vaginal dryness. I'm gaining weight. All of these things. And I really was pigeonholed into treating kind of one symptom at a time. Hey, we're here to talk about the UTI today because we only got 5-10 minutes to really get this visit done before my hand is on the doorknob. And that really burned me out. And I felt like, again, women deserved answers, and I had the ability to give the answers. I just didn't have the time to do it. And so Discover Health, the her is for healthcare education and resources. And it was really born out of this idea of let's create a space for Black women, by Black women. And we know that when we honor Black women, everybody else is going to win. When we create a space for Black women, everybody else is going to feel welcome to that space. And so that's what Discover Health is. It was really, I need a better space as a provider and also as a patient. Like I deserve better care. So I know my sisters also deserve better care. So, what is menopause? I started treating women with overactive bladder symptoms, urinary tract infections, and very quickly I realized that the bladder depends on hormones. And so when you are in a low hormone state, so when you are breastfeeding, for instance, and you're not ovulating, things dry up. And so we can feel that in that postpartum phase, the dryness that occurs, the painful sex that occurs. We can see it physically with the changes in the vulvar, the external genitalia. You know, the labia can be smaller and actually start to disappear. And so very quickly, I realized that my ladies who were having these urinary tract infections and having these overactive bladder symptoms were responding really well to local vaginal estrogen. So a tiny little cream. People would see 4 or 5 providers, be on all of these different medications trying to prevent UTIs and trying to address their overactive bladder. And we initiate this very tiny little amount of cream to the vaginal opening, and they were having dramatic results. And so early on in my career, I was bought in with the benefits of hormones. The systemic hormone replacement therapy has not kind of been in the culture for the last couple of decades because people have been afraid of hormones. And by people, I mean the patriarchy, right? So we have a couple of generations of providers who are just unaware of the benefits of hormone replacement therapy or who have never had the opportunity to learn from mentors because it is not something that is required for your OBGYN, your nurse practitioner to learn. It's absolutely not required in most training programs. And there aren't a lot of people doing it in the field. And so there's the opportunity to learn was not there. I think the culture is changing and women are demanding that we receive better care. And there are a lot of practices popping up like Discover Health to address this unmet need. So what is menopause? Menopause just means that you have gone 1 full year or 12 months without a bleed, okay? It means that you look at the calendar, okay, I haven't bled in a year, I'm officially postmenopausal now. Postmenopause is forever. That means that your ovarian function, your ovaries are no longer going to produce the yummy hormones that tell your entire body from head to toe how to act appropriately. And before menopause, before that 12 months without a period, you have a lead up time where it's just chaotic. And this is what we call perimenopause. So it is the transition from having normal cycles to no longer having normal cycles. And the perimenopause transition for white women is about 5 to 7 years where you'll experience symptoms before your periods actually stop. For Black women, it is a decade from the data that we have, okay? So if the data says a decade, you can imagine that it's probably even longer. And what we know is that menopause affects Black women differently than it affects our counterparts. And so with every woman, what we see is there is estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone hormonal shifts that can cause physical and emotional symptoms. So this slide here just kind of shows that at birth, you don't really have a whole lot of estrogen hanging out. And then postmenopausal, same thing. So you're born into the world with not a whole lot of estrogen and you leave the world with not a whole lot of estrogen. And this time in the middle, when we are in our reproductive years, is where estrogen levels peak, okay? And so the question is, why are hormones so important? Hormones are the messengers. So you have hormones telling your body how to act, okay? So there are receptors for hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, thyroid, all over the body. And so the decline of those messengers are going to have consequences. And I really like this slide because it just kind of shows some of the hot spots of hormone receptors and some of the places where you can start to feel the physical ramifications of hormone loss. So in the brain, you have lots of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone receptors there. And so what can happen is as your ovaries stop producing as much of these hormones, your brain changes. It literally changes. And so the brain fog that you're experiencing is not in your head, it is your hormones, okay? The irritability, we were talking a little bit before we got online about righteous rage, right? So feeling like I'm going from 0 to 100 and I just have no in between. That is because of the changes in the brain that are happening with the hormone decline and change. Your hair. Your hair can become brittle, break more, shed more. You can have alopecia and hair loss. That could be a really big kind of devastating symptom, especially if you are used to being that girl, right? And you're used to having silky blowouts. It definitely changes your hair, the texture of your hair, the color of your hair, the curl pattern to your hair. All of that can change when it comes to hormones. Your heart. I will scream this from the rooftops. As Black women, we have to pay attention to our hearts. Heart disease is the #1 killer of Black women. And we know that estrogen is protective for our hearts. We know this because at the age of menopause, when most women see a steep decline in estrogen, at that same time, our risk of heart disease and heart attacks grows dramatically. One of the ways that this happens is that estrogen tells the vessels around the heart to stay elastic, okay, to stay stretchy. And so we can see the changes with, for instance, your skin, right? You can start to develop fine lines and wrinkles. You lose the plumpness, the elasticity of the skin on your face. That same change is happening with the vessels around the heart. And so you go from maybe having normal blood pressure readings to in perimenopause, now I have elevated blood pressure. Well, why is that? One of those reasons might be due to this stiffening of the vessels around the heart. And so we know that if those vessels become stiff, if they become more narrow, you're going to have more pressure and you're going to have more burden on the heart and more risk for things like heart disease, like blood clots, like strokes, and like massive heart attacks. So we know that estrogen is cardioprotective. We know that estrogen loss changes the heart. And so there is this theory that we want to get you replacing the hormones that you need before all of those changes have set in place. And so that's why we really don't want to start hormone replacement therapy with women who are 65 years plus, because at that point, you've already had these changes set into place. And if we were to give you hormones, we could basically be adding fuel to the fire. And so you can see an increased risk of things like heart disease and stroke if you wait too long to initiate hormone replacement therapy. And so when we talk about the fears of hormones, this is really what we're getting at. There was a study and they took women who were 60, 65, and they put them on hormones after no exposure to hormones before that. And they shut the study down because they were seeing, again, an increased risk of heart disease, strokes, blood clots. And the media kind of took that headline, hormones cause, strokes, and ran with it. And so everybody was afraid. Now, when we're looking at that same exact data, that same exact study, and we're interpreting it with a rational kind of lens, we recognize that the idea should be, let's treat young women before heart disease sets in place, instead of making them wait and suffer through it and think, hey, I'm going to get to menopause and then I'll be on the other side of it. When the answer is really that you're going to be in menopause forever, and those physical changes, you really don't want to be waiting on that because, again, you can have heart disease start to set in place. So we have the skin. We know you can be dry. You can be itchy. I have so many clients that come to me and they will say things like, I feel like I have bugs crawling all over my skin. I'm so dry and itchy. Or, I looked in the mirror one day and I aged 20 years and who is she? I don't know her. So the skin is definitely affected. The skin of the vulva, of the vagina, of the opening to the bladder is affected. So if you're having recurring UTIs, recurrent vaginal infections, vaginal dryness, painful intimacy, it's because this skin becomes very thin, very friable, tears easily. I talked already about the bladder and how that can be impacted. And something else that I love to highlight is your joints. You have hormone receptors in all of your joints. And so if you're experiencing joint pain or frozen shoulder, hip pain, that could actually be a sign that you are experiencing hormone decline. This is just a bunch of symptoms. I'm meant to overwhelm you with this slide. Every part of your body has hormone receptors, and so that means that every part of your body has the ability to have negative impacts of hormone loss. I created a checklist. If you visit menopausechecklist.com, it's 40 plus symptoms of menopause and perimenopause. And it's a great way to get the conversation started with your provider so that when you see them, instead of going in and saying, I just don't feel like I'm that girl anymore, I just don't feel like myself anymore, you can have specific language to say, I'm experiencing mood changes, hair changes, decreased libido, joint pain, dry mouth, brain fog. And that is a way to be taken more seriously, because we know that, especially as Black women, there's always the risk that the person on the other end isn't necessarily going to believe you and not necessarily going to have the tools to be able to treat you. These are just a couple case studies I'm going to skip so that we can be mindful of time. Whenever I give these talks, it doesn't matter who I'm talking to, I'm always highlighting this. Black women experience menopause differently than other women. And that is because race and racism affect the menopause experience. We know that Black women tend to reach menopause 8.5 months sooner than white women, okay? So when we're talking about in our 40s experiencing symptoms, Black women in your 30s, you could be experiencing symptoms, you know, especially if you're waiting to have children and you're in your late 30s having babies. That kind of zone of, is this still postpartum or is this now perimenopause, becomes very gray, okay? Black women are twice as likely as white women to have a hysterectomy or oophorectomy, so that's surgical menopause. We're 3 times more likely to experience premature menopause compared with white women. And the premature menopause, if you can go back to that slide about the heart and think about the changes, that means that we're experiencing those changes longer. And so that can increase the risk of the coronary heart disease. All right. So many women, especially Black women, deal with hot flashes for a longer period of time. So it could be up to a decade of misery and suffering. And sometimes your provider might say, oh, you're not quite at menopause yet, and so I'm not going to offer you anything. So I just want to take a quick pause. So drop a letter in the chat, A, if you have had any difficulty finding care. B, if no, it was easy. I was easily able to find expert care. Or C, I've never tried to find expert care for hormones. A, C. Yeah, it's very rare that I get a B. And usually if I get a B, it's because it's like my clients who have been like, yeah, I met you at so-and-so. And so it was super easy to talk about hormones because, you know, I went to this event and I learned from you. And so hopefully this experience will allow you to know that there are experts that are trained in this and that you don't have to suffer. All right. We are gonna go forward. So unmanaged symptoms don't just make you uncomfortable for up to a decade, they also contribute to long-term health ramifications like osteoporosis, like heart disease risk, like Alzheimer's risk. If you have any of that in your family, diabetes can be affected by hormone changes too. So if you have any of that in your family, you definitely should be talking to an expert. The other thing I really want to highlight, women who have hot flashes. So we know that more than 6 hot flashes in a day, those women are going to be 70% more likely to have a heart attack. So if someone is doing the boots on the ground shuffle and has their fan out and they're fanning themselves because they're having a hot flash and not just because of the dance, you know, I want you to say, hey, sis, that hot flash, it might just be uncomfortable to you, but it's also a vital sign. It's a signal that something else is happening and that there are changes that need to be addressed. So friends don't let friends have hot flashes. So what are the solutions? Definitely you can start with lifestyle. I'm excited to be here with Shalita tonight, and I recommend a lot of supplements too, but there comes a point where you run out of oil. So I like to bring up the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. You know, he could have every intention on dancing, but if he's out of oil, he's like, I need, there's nothing you can do. You can't work out harder. You can't eat the right things. You can take a boatload of supplements, but if you are out of gas, you are out of gas. And it's no shame in asking for support. Cognitive behavioral therapy, we're all a little crazy. Everybody needs a therapist. I think is important because when you are experiencing midlife, not only are you experiencing these physical changes to your body, but you might have young children. You might have older aging parents that you have to take care of. You have businesses and bills and all of these other things. And so it's a very stressful time in life. And so you really need a community and some support. There's some really good data looking at acupuncture. I love acupuncture. It was so helpful for me, especially postpartum. It really helped me to change my life. And so if you have access to a great acupuncturist, I highly encourage it. I think that the culture thinks that some of these therapies are like white spaces, like white people do that. But the truth of the matter is that some of the most granola, hippie, natural people in the world are Black people. This is for us, and we deserve it too. So again, very excited to be here with Shalita tonight. All right. So when you run out of gas and you've done all of the herbs and you've done the acupuncture, you've in therapy, you're eating right, you're working out, but you still can't lose weight and you still have brain fog and you still having joint pain, then that is when you need to consider hormone replacement therapy. And so in my practice, we do bioidentical hormones. So what that means is that it's not synthetic hormones. So it looks exactly like the hormones that your body naturally produce. And it comes in many forms. So I like to start with estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen, again, is going to be that growth hormone. So it can be super helpful at helping really quickly, especially with hot flashes and night sweats. So there's a 75% response in some of the data in looking at the urogenital changes, so the bladder changes. 75% of people who start HRT, hormone replacement therapy, respond positively. So that's incredible. And you can have improvement in sleep, improvement in mood, and all of this can happen pretty quickly too. So my dream team when it comes to treating women would be a estrogen patch, so a through the skin patch. I like to do transdermal or through the skin for estrogen because that increase that was noted in that study that I was referring to, that increased risk of blood clots and strokes, does not exist if we give you estrogen through the skin. So oral estrogen, there's a very slight risk of that, but when we give it to you transdermally, it is not there according to the data. So pretty much every woman, I'm offering transdermal estrogen patches as a first line. And it's a very simple thing. It's a tiny little adhesive. The circle ones are about that big. The square ones are a little bit bigger. You put it on your bikini line, so right above the hair-bearing part of your vulva. It is pretty easy to use. You change it twice a week, so like a Monday, Thursday schedule. And then the progesterone is going to come in the form of a pill, most likely. I like to do the progesterone as a pill because you can use it as a sleep aid. So if you're on trazodone or taking melatonin and all of these other medications to try to fall asleep and it's not working, progesterone can really be a game changer at getting you more restorative, restful sleep. Anytime we give you estrogen systemically, we have to give you progesterone because estrogen stimulates the lining of the uterus to grow. And so we have to give you progesterone to combat that. So they have, as long as you have a uterus, you have to use both estrogen and progesterone. So the long-term benefits, we need more data with this, but some of the evolving evidence suggests that they, if started at the right time, so in this window of opportunity where you're young enough, where those heart changes have not started to occur, There is, in theory, a lower heart disease risk, decreased death from all causes. So we call it all-cause mortality. You have more likelihood to live longer with HRT. Improved bone health. So again, if mom has osteopenia, osteoporosis, you really need to be considering estrogen. And improved brain health. So some really cool data coming out looking at Alzheimer's disease risk and risk reduction. Okay, local vulvar vaginal estrogen. So if you're like, girl, I don't want to do any of the systemic stuff, I'm still scared, I don't care what you're saying, but you want to do something to help your dryness, your painful intercourse, your UTIs, the local vaginal estrogen cream does not increase your systemic levels of hormones. So even if you are not a good candidate for HRT, systemic HRT, you can still use local vaginal estrogen in the form of a cream, a suppository, a tablet, a ring, lots of different options, but you do not have to suffer with pain, UTIs, overactive bladder. It is not just in your head, it is your hormones. So what do you need to do? Be your own advocate. Partner with someone who knows what they're talking about. Understand that your OBGYN has likely not had training in this. And so if you are presenting with all of these symptoms and maybe you start a anti-anxiety medication and an antidepressant and a sleep pill and all of these other medications, maybe you want to take a time out and say, okay, maybe I can address all of this with hormone replacement therapy. Engage in open conversations with your friends, your sisters, your community, because you sharing your story gives your sister the permission to share her own and not experience this. It could be very lonely, feeling like I'm out of my body and I keep going to see people and they tell me that nothing is wrong with me or that it's all in my head. So building community at this time is super important. You want to stay on top of important screening. So estrogen, progesterone, these hormones do not cause breast cancer. They do not cause cancer. But if you have a cancer that's hanging out, it will feed it. And so it's very important that we're staying on top of things like our mammograms and checking for colon cancer. So if you're 45 plus, you really need to be, especially as a Black woman, looking into colon cancer screening. And if you have bone changes or a history of osteoporosis in your family, maybe even doing a bone density scan to see. And we can help you do all of this at Discover Health. So this is just a little bit about our method. So usually it happens in 4 phases. Phase 1 is always hormones first. I'm addressing your hormones because if you have any other issues, if we get that out of the way, a lot of those issues will improve. Phase 2 is going to be our pelvic reset program. So that's when we specifically talk about painful intercourse. We talk about muscle relaxation. We talk about constipation, and we talk about overactive bladder and leakage symptoms. Phase 3 is our metabolic reset program. So if you're looking to lose weight, you got your hormones dialed in, but you still can't lose weight, then we look at options like the GLP-1 injections, meal ideas, exercise programs, and making sure that there's nothing else in your labs that might be contributing to weight gain. And then number 4 is probably my favorite part. So once you are out of misery and into your return to your glow up, this is when we can do things like laser hair removal, vaginal rejuvenation, the skin procedures to really get you to externally look the way that you are now feeling so good internally. So I just ran through that. We have some supplements that I like. If you would like to book an appointment, you can scan this QR code. And again, that menopause checklist is a great way to get the conversation started.
And that checklist is menopausechecklist.com.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Jenna. Appreciate it. I'm jotting down. I had a bunch of questions. Look, when you first started and you said urogynecology, I'm like, oh, she was doing white people gynecology.
Like European?
Yes, I know Shalita did too. I know you. Like, oh,
Yeah, I surely did
there
it.
were different types.
It's so funny. I did see a lot of white women, and it's not because Black women don't suffer. We actually suffer more, is that we suffer in silence. And they are typically not getting the referrals to specialists like urogynecology or not even seeking it because it's like, well, I guess I can deal with a little bit of leakage, you know? So.
And white women are not going to suffer in silence because the world has told them they don't have to suffer at all.
And neither do.
So we need to take that cue. If nothing else, take that one. Thank you, Jenna. This was so, so informative. And I'm just looking at all the women rolling in this conversation throughout this time together. And what it says to me is like this is clearly needed, right? Like there are names here I don't know, there's faces I've never seen. But and this is a business network, right? So what this tells you is like there are not enough spaces and places where we can have these conversations with in safe space. And I really appreciate that you do this work, first of all, and that you do it for us, and that you opened your toolkit to us and made yourself available. So thank you. There are a couple questions before I jump over to Shalita. For I saw Shalita feverishly
Yes,
taking notes,
that's right.
so I know she is ready to dial in. And so I want to ask a couple questions. One is there a recommended length of time to be on HRT?
Yeah. So once your ovaries stop producing hormones, that's a forever and ever thing. And so I make a joke. I'm like, bury me with my patch, throw an extra one in there so I can have it in the next life. But when you get your next set of ovaries, that's when you will no longer need the support. The data really supports that you can continue to use hormone replacement therapy forever and ever. As long as we initiate it when your cells are happy and healthy, then we do recommend continue it until you are okay with your symptoms coming back, and hopefully that is never.
Thank you. And then someone else asked if you have any fibroid, like any fibroid info, she says. So thoughts on fibroids, how the work that you do, the hormone replacement therapy, all of that, how that might impact fibroids. We do have some ladies in their 30s in here who may still be looking to have babies, and I know fibroids are a major challenge in our community.
Fibroids are a major challenge. They're very common, I will say that. And so oftentimes people present with these symptoms like pelvic pain, like pelvic heaviness, painful sex, and we're doing all these workup tests, ultrasounds, and the only thing that we can see is a fibroid. So a lot of the times we're blaming fibroids for everything. And so then you get your fibroid surgery, you get your fibroid removed, and none of your symptoms are improved. And you're like, well, what did I do all that for? But the answer is it maybe wasn't the fibroids to begin with.
Yeah.
I want to start by saying that Black women, especially, we have more incidents of fibroids than our white counterparts, and so we're going to be particularly affected by that. Fibroids, we know, causes abnormal uterine bleeding, so super heavy bleeding is very common, especially in perimenopause, because your ovarian function is all over the place. One of the earliest signs is that your bleeding may stop or become very, very heavy. And if you have fibroids, you're more likely to have that very heavy bleeding. Progesterone does a great job of keeping the lining. So I'd like to just explain a little bit about what your period is. So estrogen is a hormone, and it's like it's making a bed for a comfy guest. It's like a maid at a nice hotel, right? And so the estrogen is saying, okay, I'm gonna lay down some sheets and I'm gonna lay down some comforters and a duvet and some pillows. So it's building up the layers. Progesterone comes in and says, okay, now that's enough. Let's stabilize things and let our guest arrive. If the guest does not arrive, embryo does not implant, pregnancy does not occur, then all of those layers come out in the form of a bleed or a period. Okay. So in perimenopause, when estrogen is all over the place, progesterone is all over the place, you can have lots of abnormal bleeding. So we know that if you have super heavy bleeding, one of my favorite tools is to use bioidentical progesterone to keep that bleeding in check. So if you have fibroids and you have heavy bleeding, then using some progesterone can be super helpful.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. I certainly suffered with fibroids and had fibroids removed and all, but one of the things that I know told me like my fibroids needed to be removed was I could feel the weight of them when I laid on my back. So, but I wasn't having some of those other symptoms, right? Like the really heavy or painful bleeding or any of that. But when I laid on my back, I could literally feel the weight of it and I could see it. It was like my stomach was like a hill
Mm-hmm.
on one side. And so, but to your point about like they'll just be like, oh, just have the surgery. I know so many people who, have had the surgery and no change in their symptoms. Someone else said, I'm suffering and people keep telling me you're too young for this and that. And so she just said, I appreciate all this information.
If you are a Black woman, you're not too young. I'm 35 and started to experience symptoms. And because I'm an expert, I felt confident to be like, oh, I'm not about to deal with this. I could wait another 10 years before somebody takes me seriously, or I could just treat myself. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that has been transformative in my practice because now when I see people who are my age coming in with these symptoms, I don't feel like, you're too young. I'm like, no, you're not too young. I've experienced it personally. Um, Especially as Black women, because we just know we have the data that says, one, we haven't studied it enough. And if it's showing that already we're gonna go into it earlier, our symptoms are gonna start sooner and last longer. Why would I make you wait? And why would I gaslight you, right? A lot of that is that providers, again, have not been trained. They don't have the tools. And so if I don't have the tools to treat you, I'm just going to say, well, you're too young. I'm going to
Yeah,
dismiss you.
yeah, yeah. Someone said, does health insurance cover HRT? This was great information. I have about 4 or 5 of these symptoms. Help.
Yes, health insurance, it should be very well covered. It could be a couple $100 for the cream, the estrogen, and the progesterone for like a 90-day supply. That's the most I see is a couple $100 for all of those combined. Typically, it might be $0 or a very small amount for each product. So very well covered. There are some practices that do a lot of compounded medications where you have to pay out of pocket and insurance doesn't cover it. But I like to just go where your insurance works. And so you can go to your regular CVS, Costco, wherever your pharmacy is and pick it up for pretty cheap. It's all FDA approved too. My practice, we do not accept insurance because we value time. And in an insurance-based practice, all I can give you is 5 to 10 minutes. But at Discover Health, we see you for an hour for their first visit, and that's typically not enough time. I'm like, oh man, we need to, do more. And all follow-up visits are a half hour. So we really have the time to really dig into the weeds and get you on that path that I showed you.
But the medicine, like any of the hormone replacement therapies that you prescribe would be covered, just not the sessions themselves.
Yep, it's not the sessions. But testosterone is another hormone that women need. It is not FDA approved for women because of patriarchy. They think that we don't have it, I guess. So that one has to come from a compounding pharmacy and is not covered by insurance, but we can get it pretty cheap for like $40 or something a month, depending
Or you
on,
could go to Mexico.
or you can go to Mexico.
Listen, I got schooled on the Mexico thing a couple weeks ago. I was in Mexico and the person I was with was like, yeah, Mexico, like they carry all these things. They don't require all of the red tape that requires for us to get certain medicines at home. And you can literally like walk in these pharmacies and just buy stuff. I'm
Mhm.
not telling y'all to do that. I'm just saying you can in Mexico.
Or you can do almost anything in Mexico.
You can, like it's
Like New
Mexico.
Jersey.
Um, let's see. Someone asked, can you put your QR codes up again? And so, um,
Yes, I
I'm
can.
going to transition to Shalita. Shalita, welcome, welcome, welcome. So grab those QR codes. So while I just kind of give intro to Shalita again, please grab those, take a picture of it or whatever you need to do so that Shalita can then throw up her slides if she's going to share anything. Shalita is the owner of and the founder of Ancestors Dream Apothecary. See, I got it right that time. Ancestors
It's all right. It's a long
Apothecary.
name. It's all right.
In Canton and Baltimore. Um, she also, as I mentioned early on, she has like a whole forest of herbs in her backyard. And she is an herbalist and she's amazing and awesome and can tell you all kinds of cool and amazing things to do with herbs. If you got our email and you opened it, we gave y'all 2 mocktails, one that Jenna suggested for sleep and one that Shalita suggested for PMS and all of those symptoms. I'm drinking Shalita's mocktail tonight because I didn't have one of the ingredients for Jenna's because otherwise I was going double fist. But definitely check those out. Those are provided to you. So you got a resource from both of them just in the email yesterday before you even got the chance to talk to them. But Shalita is also the president of the board for She's Well Network. So hello, Shalita. Tell us
Hey.
what came up for you as you listened to Jenna.
Oh my gosh.
What are some things we can be doing that for the natural girlies who are like, oh, I want to supplement when I talk to Jenna, or I'm scared, I don't want to mess with that yet, and I'm gonna drink my tea.
Well, first of all, I just want to say, Jenna, thank you so much for the wealth of information that you gave, the way that you shared it in such a conversational tone. And, because some of these concepts and some of the hormones and all that can be overwhelming, and intimidating, but you made the information just, wow, it was like butter. Okay. So I was feverishly taking notes for myself because I'll be 43 this year. And I'm going through a couple of different things, but for me, I haven't experienced most of or many of the symptoms, except now I'm starting to my mood is, it started, and I'm like, is this because it's around that time of the month, or is this because something's going on in my life? Like what? Because I feel like everything's all right, but then emotionally, there's these things that are happening, and oh, okay. Sorry. And so, and I'm also not necessarily getting hot flashes, but I'm really cold. Oh, I'm getting more and more cold, so some of, just having a better understanding of how it could creep in and start changing for me was really important. Thank you, Jenna. So for me, I call myself a spiritual herbalist because I don't just look at plant medicines as just something to be consumed as, oh, this is just something that's growing. That's just, oh, here's a calendula or here's a plant or here, let me just go ahead and there's a deep healing connection that can be made with plant medicines and with plants and with nature in general. And we've been programmed, conditioned to be disconnected from our own bodies first and foremost, and then also from nature and the world around us. So I want to say maybe like 10 years ago, I had an interest in gardening, and I said, well, let me try to grow some vegetables and things because I want to be, self-sufficient and try to mess with my food and everything. And once I started doing that, I realized, okay, well, a lot of these the vegetables and the plants, yeah, I can use them to cook meals for my family and eat healthier. But there's also medicinal plants out there that have properties that can help me too, and not just around the physical part of what's going on with me, but also the emotional, and spiritual layers that I have too. But I was like, I don't know what school I can go to or what certification I can get to talk about that. And I wanted to hear from Black women, or a Black woman who centered her practice or her information in African spirituality, because that was something on my own healing journey that I was trying to explore and get more information about. And so I did a Google search and I found Karen Rose out of Brooklyn, New York, and Sacred Vibes Apothecary. And this was around COVID time, and it was a virtual. She was offering her apprenticeship virtually because of that, and I was able to participate in that. And it was three different levels, and about 3 years that I spent learning about different herbs, the body systems, and how we might respond to different things, and astrology, and how the plants respond to like some people are like, oh, that's woo woo. Well, it's not woo woo. This is our history. Our ancestors, before we had access to traditional medicine and Western medicine, our ancestors will go to the backyard and grab some yellow dock, or go, get some plantain, or baby, why don't you put some turpentine on that and, wrap that on up. Now we're like, turpentine, oh my God, that's gonna kill us. We're so like, oh, I can't do that. So going through that journey helped me to better see and appreciate how our ancestors and my ancestors got me here. And so I studied under her, and then I found a woman named Iasabunde Greer with NCB School of Herbalism and Holistic Health out of Tennessee. And she's been, teaching me too about, like, deeper about herbalism and the body systems, but then also introduced me to the Yoruba tradition of Ifa. And so, all of it, has been coming together. And so for me, I've been like, well, how can I help my community or what I'm learning, right? Because this information is something that you learn. It's a lifelong thing. It isn't like, okay, I've arrived, I'm an expert now, so I could tell you everything. No, what I am is a Black woman who is caring about my own health, that started down my own journey of trying to heal and figure out what are these things that are manifesting in my body, and what do I have, at my fingertips that I can take back the power of my own health. And so that's what encouraged me to start Ancestors Dream Apothecary, because I have products, bath care products that are luxurious, and tea blends and all of that, spiritual tools. I have those things, but that's not what that work is about for me. It's about giving the herbal medicine and education and, to my community. So that's why I'm here. And I'm hoping that tonight I can help, I'm gonna be a little quick. I'm gonna be quick and I can, to make that connection between what are some of our lifestyle practices, right? And some of our unresolved emotional trauma that might be following us, that are living in our bodies and affecting our different systems. And that can also includes our hormones, right? And sometimes we might be like, well, this feels like a hormonal thing. What's going on? But there are also other things. We're disconnected from our womb because of different types of trauma. And so being able to look at ourselves holistically is really important. So hopefully there'll be something I share tonight that might be helpful. So I'll switch over to my no, not my entire screen, just this right there. Okay, you can see it. It's on there. Okay, awesome. And I might be looking up here because it's up here. I got another screen up, but so I already told you about myself. You don't know about me. So I loved this video. It just, this short video of this elder. It reminds me and brings home the importance of centering or tapping into the knowledge of our ancestors. And I like to tell folks, like, we already have our medicine. We already have medicine inside that we aren't really accessing, and we don't recognize it as such. And so, hopefully we can uncover some of that. So as I was saying before, when we don't take care of our heart, when we don't take care of our body, when we don't take care of our emotions, right, it manifests physically in our bodies. And just want to go over some things here. So in the chat, where do you think anger lives in the body? And let me see if I can see the chat. Can you still see okay. Where do you think it lives in the body? Okay, somebody said pelvic floor, stomach, mind, gut, heart, kidney. Okay. Come on. It ain't there yet. Where do you think it lives? Neck. And not this, your whole body is affected by these things. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying there is a place where it typically manifests. Yeah, the whole body, it will affect you. It will affect the whole body. Liver, somebody said it. Yes, the liver. It's so much so that with my husband, actually, I had him, I created a angry liver tea, because he was starting to feel some pain in his liver, and he went to go get his liver levels checked and things, and his levels weren't that high, but they couldn't really tell him what else was going on. And I know that he carries a lot of anger. We all do in some way, shape, or form, especially with what our ancestors had to deal with, how we deal with, continue to deal with oppression and different things. But anger lives in the liver, right? And here, and I'm running through it a little bit because I don't want to take up too much time. But plant allies for the liver are dandelion, milk thistle, and yellow dock. And a lot of people feel like dandelion is a weed. It's not a weed, y'all. it has so much medicine in it, and you can use all of the plant. You can use the roots, you can use the leaves, you can use the flowers. And when I say use, you can partake and consume, right? I don't want to say use as if, we're just, oh, I'm just going to give me this, but it's a whole medicine. Milk thistle as well, yellow dock, like these are things also that you can grow. So I also try to encourage folks to think about, well, first of all, we know dandelions grow because they just grow by themselves. They're very resilient. There's a spiritual message to each of these as well. And for dandelion, because I walked with dandelion in my spiritual herbalism class, dandelion is about grounding, but at the same time, you allowing to be free and to flow, but you're still grounded and being yourself and tapping into who you really are at the core. Dandelion helps with that. So we got the liver. Oh yes. So now, as long as you don't spray any pesticides or anything in your yard, yes, you can grab some dandelion, rinse it off. Look, I sauteed some dandelion leaves with some spinach and some garlic, and that, yeah. And if you let certain dandelions, when they grow long enough, there'll be a long tap root, and you can chop that up and saute that as well. So the whole plant. So y'all, next time, don't be like, oh, those are weeds. No, that's medicine. That is medicine. And it also helps with your kidneys as well as your liver. So yeah. Let me go to the next slide. Okay. So where does grief live in the body? Where does grief live? Heart and lungs. Oh, you know all the answers. Affordable benefit solutions. You know all the answers. Okay. The lungs. Yes. Ding, ding, ding. It's in your lungs. And I like to use COVID as an example. When we all collectively were grieving as a global community. There are systems in place, there are things happening in places that are just unconceivable, that are just, people are dealing with so much. And especially here in our everyday lives, we are told we have to keep going. You have to, okay, yeah, you just lost somebody very close to you, but you have to go do A, B, and C. You got to be all these things to these different people, and you don't have time to process it. So it harbors itself in our lungs. Like whenever you get bad news or something, bad news, you notice how you might lose your breath, or you're like, that's the first thing. And it's not resolved. And if you're not actually breathing properly, if you're not actually processing your grief, it will show up in different ways, like respiratory issues, right? So bronchitis, asthma. If you have these types of things, not to say that grief is the reason, but take a look at how are you processing grief? Like, are you caring for yourself? Are you releasing the things that you're holding in your lungs? Because if not, then it can manifest in that way. And some plant allies, mullein, elecampane, and thyme. Again, all three of these grow so easily around you. Mullein, you might have seen this big old plant right on the side of the road, these big old leaves that are furry, like that's mullein. And again, unless you if you're sure they don't spray pesticides or anything like that, then you can harvest some of that. Our ancestors used mullein, the actual leaves, as they used it for toilet paper if you needed it, out in the field. They used it to wrap bruises and things like that, right? Look, you got your time in there, just Riggs. Yep, I'm telling y'all. Yes, elecampane. I actually have it growing in my garden, and it has these big, huge leaves, big, beautiful flowers on it. Yeah, so just embrace our plant allies that are around us. Okay. Yeah, grief takes your breath away, literally. And then if you also seen you have frequent colds, tightness in your chest, chronic fatigue, you just can't catch your breath, breathe and process what's going on with you. Okay, so where does chronic stress live in the body? and this, whatever y'all say is gonna be right, because the kidneys, okay, kidneys. We were talking about this, right? We talk about this. The jaw. It live everywhere, but it will definitely show up when we're talking about hormonal issues. Oh, wait a minute, where'd it go? Yep. So let me go to the next slide. So, let me go back. Hormonal issues. If you're noticing like extreme fatigue, weight fluctuations, brain fog, irregular cycles, like your thyroid gland is being affected, your adrenals are being affected. And a couple of herbs to help. Look at my time. Ashwagandha. Look, these little things, they look pretty until it stops. It's on a thing. Ashwagandha, licorice root, nettle leaf. Oh my gosh. Ashwagandha, it helps the adrenals, it helps with stress. Licorice root, I love using that. I have that I actually have a Mother of Change blends, menopause blend at the apothecary that has licorice root in it. And I love it because it adds a sweetness to it without you needing to add any sugar or anything to the tea, or whatever blend that you might be making with it. And nettle leaf. And nettle leaf is something that grows, again, it's another thing. You go into the park, you go somewhere and you see stinging nettle, and it has these little hairs on it, underneath of it. You gotta be careful when you're harvesting it. But nettle it has so many vitamins in it. And spiritually, they liken it, they call it like mother's milk. Like if you have any issues with your mother, with a mother like figure. I know I lost my mom when I was very young. So me consuming nettle on a spiritual level also helps me, heal some of that disconnection there. But you can grow nettle. It's so easy. And they consider that to almost be a weed too. So there's that. Okay, let me keep on going. Yeah, I only got like one more. And then childhood sexual trauma, where do you think it manifests predominantly? For us women. Womb, yes. Yes, and this has been my walk and my journey too, because when I was younger, I was molested by my uncle. And so many of us have that in our story with somebody that we trusted. And especially when it happens at all, but especially when it happens early, there's a severing almost of the connection between my heart and my womb. And a shame that came up from that, and made it very difficult for me to even really understand and appreciate and what intimacy, sexual intimacy with a partner really looked like. And it was really about the other person and nothing about myself, because I was ashamed, to even make it about me. And so my healing journey has been about addressing acknowledging and allowing myself to remember what happened, so that I could go back and help that little girl who really was confused and didn't know what's happening, didn't know what was happening at the time. And that might be the case for many, if not all of us, is that inner child, that young girl inside that really didn't know what was going on. And for defense purposes and to protect herself, have put up walls that then kept her from her womb and kept her from the creativity that lives there. Sometimes when we feel like, oh, I can't do this thing, I want to create, but I can't create, because it's not always about childbirth, because not all of us can have children, but the womb space is still the portal from spirit into this manifested world. And you bring your ideas and your vision from spirit through your womb out into the world. And if you are not, connected to your womb, or if there's an issue there, then that prevents you from really expressing who you truly are and bringing your gifts to the world, giving birth to your gifts. So I would encourage you that if those are types of things that you're dealing with, to really lean into that and to go back and get that little girl and surround yourself with community of Black women like this, who can help support you when those emotions start to come up. So I've done things like make a womb, like a womb oil with some red raspberry oil, chamomile, rose that I infused in some coconut oil, and I, just rub it on my womb area and meditate, and say positive things to her. Like, do you know that your womb has a heartbeat? Like, it has its own beat. And we don't know that because we're not connected. And so, take the time to do that. So, because I know yeah, the little girl must heal. So red raspberry is a beautiful, beautiful, nourishing plant. And yes, it's the leaves of a raspberry bush, right? Like, these are things that we have at our fingertips. Lady's mantle is also a very strong reproductive herb. Motherwort is also very strong. I have these things at the apothecary, these loose herbs at the apothecary, as well as in tea blends that I have too. So, I know out of time, we only got a couple more minutes, and I want you to, how can we totally spiritually heal from that womb trauma? Well, everybody's spiritual path and how they heal will be different, but for me, it was acknowledging that there was an issue and talking to someone about it and realizing that I wasn't alone and that it wasn't something to be ashamed of. And when I was in my my herbalism class, she actually walked us through different things that we can do. That's where I got the idea about the meditating. You just put your hands over your womb and just breathe and just sit with her, and talk to her and listen to her. And she'll tell you what you need to do to heal, whether that is making some more time for yourself to draw a self-care bath, or, a yoni steam or a yoni bath with some herbs that help to support you in your bath water, whether that's having the oil, whether that's going to go see Jenna, to get to learn more about your hormones and about those types of remedies, like the traditional ways, and not just traditional, because it's scientific, right? Ways to be able to approach the healing with your womb, right? Both is needed. We need all of it. But listen, sit with yourself and sit with your womb and let her tell you what she needs. Okay, and I think that's all I had. Oh, okay. Now I'm gonna stop right there, because we can talk about people pleasing. Okay, we can talk about people pleasing. We want to talk about. I just want you to take care of yourself. Take care of your heart. Honor how you feel. And if you're not quite sure how to put words to it, I found this emotions wheel, which a lot of social workers, a lot of people in the holistic health space and just health space in general, they've been using this to help people to, like, get out of the middle circle. Okay, we're used to, oh, I'm afraid, I'm sad, I don't like this, I'm alone, I'm angry, I'm embarrassed. But the further you go out in the rungs, the more detailed and specific the words get, right? To the feelings. And so I know you're not going to memorize all that. I'll also make sure that I give the PowerPoint to Nakia, so she can send it out to anyone. But just, the point is, it's okay to feel. And if you ignore your feelings, your body is not ignoring your feelings. They will take up residence in all parts of your body, and your hormones and your mind and your heart and your womb, everywhere. So when you start to notice symptoms of certain things, I also want you to take a step back and be like, what is going on in my life right now? What am I holding? What am I carrying with me that's too heavy from my childhood, from how I've been treated, from how I'm being treated, like, that is now showing up? And the only way that it can get my attention now is to sit me down through my womb, or through my heart, or through my lungs, or through my liver. Don't let it get to that point, because it is literally life or death. Right. So that's, and I'll share, oh, it's right here. If you want to scan and keep in touch with me, I do holistic health wellness consultations. And really, it's sitting with somebody who can look at you as the whole person and and give you feedback, right? On maybe some of the blind spots when we talk about the spiritual and the emotional parts, as well as the physical. And of course, anything that I would say, before you get any purchase any use any herbs for anything. Check with your doctor, because I'm not a doctor, but I am a sister who's going through things that you're probably going through, that I'm going to share the information that's helping me and that I've seen and help other people. But make sure that you do your due diligence as well. So that's it. I'm
Thanks,
sorry.
Shalita. Go visit Shalita at
Oh, see me.
Dream Apothecary. Go get your
AncestorDream.com.
so Shalita, name one or two of your teas or products in the apothecary that you use. So Jenna shared a few different therapies she ends up prescribing or recommending. What are like 2 or 3 of the teas or things in the apothecary that you recommend for women who may be experiencing any of the things that Jenna talked about on the front end?
Yes. So I have a Mother of Change tea blend. So for those who are experiencing menopause or premenopause, have that. I also like to use my Clean House detox powder. It's a coffee supplement or replacement, or if you want to, add it to your coffee, you can. But it has like burdock root, chicory root, dandelion root in it, all the things that help kind of, flush you out. So if I had to name 2, because I does to stay within the aligned with the, then that's what I I would say.
I'm getting that Clean House detox. I'm gonna try that.
Come on, it tastes like chocolate because it's cacao in it.
And I love chocolate. All right. Any questions for the ladies before we close this out? I'm gonna stop the recording. Thank you all for joining us.